Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem. This is a postmortem of my Blitz game number 268. My opponent kicked off with e4, and I played e5, and we get into the bishop's opening with bishop c5 there. So I play the normal move, knight f6, and my opponent plays the most common move here, knight d3 rather. Looks like d4 is also possible, and knight c3. Other ideas. Knight c3 is the engine recommendation, also d3. So, excuse me, wrong pawn, d3. So now I play bishop c5. It's not the top choice here, but I think it's reasonable. c6 is an idea too, wanting to build up, or knight c6 going into some kind of two knights defense, I guess. Something like the two knights defense. Okay, but in this position, I was expecting knight c3 and getting into, transposing into, or knight f3, transposing into a more normal looking Italian game. And instead, my opponent surprised me with f4. And this is a trick I should remember. A lot of times you can answer f4 with d4, particularly when you have your knight here already, with the knight supporting the advance of the pawn to d4. So even though there's a bishop and a pawn here, you can play that, and if he takes, you can take back with the knight. So after d4, just to look at this variation a bit, White's best response is to take this pawn. He can't play this move because you have the neat trick knight takes e4 with the threat of knight to f2, forking the queen and the rook. So so black is just winning in this variation. So he has to grab this pawn, and he could take with either the bishop or the pawn. But if he takes with the bishop, you can trade it off and just castle. 1, 2. What's the count? It seems like I should grab a pawn back at some point, but just castling is good. I guess I'm going to get the d pawn here. Oh, the engine likes queen h4 check even better. Queen d4. Okay, well that's a very dramatic way to play, threatening checkmate. Let's see, is there a simpler way to play after this? Say knight takes, pawn takes. Why not just take on f4 here? Bishop takes. I guess this leads to about an equal position. Maybe the problem is White can throw in this move, queen to e2 check, retreat the bishop, and now I can take on f4. And what's the state of things? We got 3 pawns over here versus 5, and 3 versus 2 over here. I can grab a pawn or castle. Okay, so that restores material equality, and you've got an equal position if you don't want to go into one of the crazier tactical lines. Anyway, and he could also take with the pawn there. But you can also get the pawn back. Although in this case, maybe knight g4 is a better move. Once again, threatening this fork. Okay, so anyway, d4 is the move to, d5 rather. d5 is the move to counter f4. My opponent played f4, and I took it, just kind of wanting to see what would happen, I guess. And I get into some trouble, although the engine thinks I'm still doing okay here. So let's play on a few moves. Bishop takes. The difference between this position and the king's gambit is that White gets in this move, bishop takes f4 right away. So it's not even a gambit. He's just got good development. And but the engine likes black here with the move d5 once again. I guess because I have this threat of knight g4. Combined with d5 hitting the bishop. Okay, so I just played d6, he plays knight f3, and now knight g4 is not such a threat because White can just castle. So we continue with the normal development for a while. I go knight c6, he goes bishop g5, bishop g5. Oh, pinning this knight. Yeah, this was a bit of an awkward pin, I felt, although the engine still thinks I'm doing okay with a move like h6, kicking the bishop. And I guess if I'm going to play h6, this is a good time to do it before his rook gets on the f-file. I played here bishop e6, trying to lessen the pressure along this diagonal and the pressure on f7, which I know that because of this open f file, the rook is coming here anyway pretty soon. So he just drops his bishop back. I castle, and he plays knight c3, so getting his pieces out. And now, once again, the engine likes h6. I go for knight e5, and now maybe with best moves, white has some advantage here. It's interesting that d4, I was a little bit worried about this in the game after I made the move, but it doesn't work because I have, after d4, I can play knight takes f3 check and get out of it that way. Get out of the pen, the fork, I mean, with a take with check. Okay, so he goes rook f1. I was a little surprised he didn't castle, but this gets the rook on the f file just as well as castling. And now I played bishop takes b3, trying to clarify this situation over here. He took with the c pawn. A little bit surprising. I was expecting take with the a pawn and open up a file for the rook here. And now I play knight g6, just getting the knight out of this forking square and getting over here where maybe I can start harassing the bishop. Now I'm thinking about playing h6 because if the bishop retreats to h4, I can take it with the knight. Okay, he plays queen c2, which I suppose makes sense of that move c takes b3 when he took back that way with the bishop. Play queen e7, and now he could throw in the move knight d5 and get some advantage here. This is pretty good for white. It's attacking the pinned knight and attacking my queen at the same time. He castles instead. He's still got some advantage after queen e6, and with the move d4, attacking my bishop, and then d5, hitting the queen. Yeah, he can kind of kick me around and chase my queen away from this knight, or putting it back in the pin. Okay, he did play d4. I put my bishop over here, and then he went rook d to e1. Right now is his best chance. I think this is one of the places where white could have really got a strong advantage by just taking on f6. And it's dangerous for me to take back. The problem is, if I take back with the queen, he has this move knight d5. It's a fork of the queen and the bishop, and I can't save the bishop. I've got to move the queen, so actually loses a whole piece. So after bishop takes, the engine is recommending taking here, but if I do that, he can throw in bishop takes g7, and then after some takebacks, I'm just down a pawn, and black is doing, white's got good development of his pieces. He hasn't, so I have no compensation for losing the pawn. In fact, white has the pawn and the compensation, it looks like. So what else? I could try pawn takes bishop here, and then knight d5 hits the pawn, hits the bishop. So if I move the bishop to save it, then he can move his rook away, knight d2, and unveil this attack on the f-pawn, which is really hard to save. So once again, I'm losing a pawn here, and white's got a great position. So he let me off the hook a little bit with this move rook to e1, and but he gets one more chance. So that was his first chance to really kind of put the game away. I finally moved my knight away so the bishop won't exchange itself on f6, and then play the move h6. So I'm finally getting rid of that bishop, which was causing me trouble all this time. And we get to this position, and I play the move c5. I guess it's not here, it's in another move. d5, right here, queen e7. Queen e7 turns out to be a mistake because it allows a tempo-gaining move from white. And you'll see the evaluation on the engine just goes up and up. It starts out with a little advantage, and it climbs quite quickly. So he can play knight f5 here, attacking my queen. And I don't have any good squares to go to. He's also attacking the pawn on d6. So I guess I can try queen e5 to hold on to that pawn. I don't want to go to f6 and just be in the path of his rook there. Then he's got rook g3, targeting this square. And if I play g6, which is the recommendation, then he's got knight takes h6. So he just is developing a real strong attack very quickly with a few tempo moves, starting with knight f4. And I was feeling very uncomfortable at this position. He played rook g3 first, so right idea, maybe just not the best timing. Oh yeah, because it blunders the knight. That's the problem. So rook g3 is a good move, but the knight is hanging over here on h4. So I was really just saved by my opponent's blunder. He had just reached this point. Right here he has a slight edge after queen e7, allowing this knight f4 with tempo. He actually has a winning position here, but he immediately blunders, and then the game is pretty much over here after I pick up the knight. I have to be a little careful because he still has threats, but I'm able to parry them all and start making counter threats of my own. This knight h5 is a nice try, supported by the queen and attacking on h5. The engine says I can ignore that and play rook c2, which is funny. You don't normally think of playing this way because it allows rook takes g7 check. What else does it say? It says I could try rook takes e4. Yeah, rook takes e4 is interesting, but once again, he has rook takes g7 check. But the engine is not afraid of this move, or g6. So the knight g6 is not the best defense, but it's good enough because I'm still a piece up. And he gives away, yeah, I'd seen this coming. After rook g4, he gives away another piece. And but there's one last blunder here, which is interesting, which is my blunder, knight e5. And now he could play, finally, rook takes g7, which he's been wanting to play for a while because of the discovered attack on my queen. And now he's lost two minor pieces and a rook. So I have a rook, a bishop, and a knight for the queen. So I still have the material advantage here and should go on to win. But the game would have continued at least. Instead, he played rook g3 and he resigned after I took his queen. So that's how it ended. It was kind of a sudden finish where he just started blundering, but actually he played pretty well in the early part of the game and got a pretty good attack going. So I thought it was interesting, at least for that part. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.